All right, my friends, welcome back to another episode of Talking Trades. From Texas to Bozeman, Montana. I got a really fun episode for you today. We're going to be visiting Lydia Crowder, also known as Drywall Shorty. Lydia and her husband Ryan are drywall contractors here outside of Bozeman, and we're going to be spending the next 2 days with Lydia. What do they do for a living? What's it like? What's the opportunity for people in the trade? We're gonna have a lot of fun, and let's see if I can grab it. I actually brought some tools with me that either Lydia is gonna think, oh, this is great, or she's gonna say, what a dork. We shall see. Talking trades or talking drywall? Let's get going.
Build Original Series hosted by Matt Reisinger. Talking Trades. Brought to you by Front Door and Sashco.
Hey, Lydia. Hey, good morning. How's it going? Good to see you. I'm doing great.
Good. Hey, you ready to go?
I brought some tools. You know, as a good apprentice, I figured I needed to bring some tools. I'm a little shy that these are brand new and all stickered up.
They are. They are very shiny. We definitely need to get some mud on those. We need to get some mud on you.
Yeah, I'm looking a little clean in my all black today, aren't I?
Yeah, you are.
Was it a mistake wearing all black?
Possibly.
Because
most
of what you work with tends to be white, isn't it?
It is. I like wearing black though.
You know, we should probably get a good before and after of me today.
Oh, absolutely.
Of clean and all black, and we'll see what I look like at the end of the day working with you.
I know, that'll be interesting. I definitely think you're gonna be a little dirty.
I think so. What are we doing today?
So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start working on this house. It's an old front house that's been gutted.
All right, let's have a look. All right, Lydia, what do you got going on here?
Well, this is a pretty typical job for us. It's just my husband and I. And, you know, once the drywall board is hung, we come in and we start finishing.
Okay, so you guys specialize in finishing then as a drywall contractor, right?
We do, because there's different types of drywall contractors. There are those that hang, there are those that finish, and then there are those that hang and finish, and then there's actually plaster contractors also.
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of different options in this industry, isn't there?
There are, it's crazy.
So walk me through the process. Pretend like I've never been in a house in this phase before. What are we looking at here?
So the drywall contractor comes in after all of the rough stuff is done. So you've got your framing done, you've got your insulation in, you've got your plumbing, your electrical. All of those things need to be rough, they need to be inspected, and you need to make sure that you're okay to get these walls closed up.
Yep, so insulation contractors finish too.
Yes.
And then what happens after that?
Well, after that, then we put the boards up.
Okay.
But the only thing that you can't do is you can't blow in the lid insulation. You have to wait until the ceiling boards are up, then you can blow in your lid.
Got it.
But all these walls need to be done. Like, you don't want to have the electrician come back in and be like, oh no, I got to run wires through all of this, because then that means you're cutting into this stuff.
Got it. And then talk to me about drywall sizes. What are we seeing here on the wall?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are 4 feet wide and 12 feet long. It also comes in 4 foot by 8 foot, and then it also comes in 5 foot and 8 foot and 12 foot.
Okay, so this little strip here means that we're probably not we're taller than an 8 foot ceiling.
We are.
Because you got a full 4 foot and a full 4 foot, and that's this belly band in the center is to make up the difference in ceiling height.
Exactly. So we call these 4 foot boards 48s, and then the 5 foots are 54s.
Oh, interesting.
So if they had hung a 54 in here, they would have had to rip every board down to get those two to fit. So typically 54s are on 9 foot and above.
Okay.
And then the 48s are on 8 foot and, well, you know, this is probably about 8 foot 3 or so. Well, not even that, probably like 8 foot 1, 8 foot 2.
Just a little bit higher.
Yeah, so it's just kind of a funky height being an old house that they've remodeled.
Yeah, remodel project.
Yeah.
And then so there's a separate hanging contractor that hung the board, screwed it in, got it all secured, and then you and Ryan take over at that point then, right?
Yep, exactly. But some crews actually do everything together. It really just depends on kind of your market and do you like hanging? And a lot of finishers like to hang their own board. That's very common because they know the quality of the hang, which then helps the quality of the finish.
Got it.
And that's really important because if you have a hanger that's really bad, it's going to make it really hard for you to finish on the end. So hangers are as important as the finishers are.
Yeah, makes sense. Now talk me through the steps and the number of days that you're in this project to go from this kind of basic board that we're seeing here that it looks like maybe has the first stage done to you're walking away and you're ready to hand it off to the painters or to the next phase of construction.
Absolutely. So obviously the hangers come in and hang the board depending on your code, will also depend on how many screws you have. So sometimes, and what's really common here are shear walls. So your screw pattern is going to be way different for a shear wall. So it's really important you're looking at plans, you're making sure that you have the right amount of screws installed. Because we also have screw inspections depending on what part of the area you're in.
Yeah, and this actually adds structural rigidity to the house too. When the wind blows, that drywall on the inside is keeping that house from moving too.
Exactly, yes. And multifamily, you know, there's different board widths. There's different board thicknesses also. So 5/8, ½ inch, and 1/4. So depending on what you're doing will also depend on what size board you're hanging.
Got it.
So for multifamily, or even if the client just chooses, you'll use 5/8 for the fire protection. Usually 5/8 is also in garages and any sort of firewalls.
Okay.
So, you know, hanging in itself seems pretty simple. Like bam, bam, you just put the sheets up. But there is actually a lot more that goes into it. Yeah. And you need to know math too. You need to be able to figure out, you know, where your studs are. You need to figure out where your joists are, how the hanging is. They also need to shim because sometimes things aren't even. So there's cardboard shims, wood shims, all sorts of things that they can do to help.
Yeah, and you also, when you're hanging, correct me if I'm wrong, but you need to think about where am I going to put cut edges versus factory edges, because that factory edge is tapered, and so we want to see two tapered edges come together so that when we put that mud on those joints, that we're actually ending up with a smooth finish through there, right?
Absolutely. So when we look at this, you can see we have our tape on. So this tape is over the flat, and we call it a flat because it's two beveled edges coming together. So the board has a beveled side, and then the other beveled side is up on that angle. And then it has a factory edge, as we call it, which is just the rough edge from the factory where the board is cut.
Got it.
Those factory edges are not beveled. So where those two edges come together that aren't beveled are called butt joints, because essentially the board is butting together.
Yeah, makes sense.
The hangers really do try to leave us the best that they can. And it's, you can tell when you have a good hanging crew because it helps us on the end.
Got it. So how many days into this job are you at this point already?
1 day.
Okay, so you've just done this first step, which is called taping, correct?
Yep, that's correct. So what we do first is we come in and we actually prep everything. So we take our easy sand, our hot mud, and then we pre-fill all of our butt joints, and we pre-fill anything that's broken or gappy. And it's really important that you're doing that because you're setting yourself up for success in the later stages. So like say there was a big piece of broken rock here and we just taped right over it, it's going to be really hollow. It's not going to tape well. You have a possibility of cracking. So you want to get everything as smooth and level as you can before you move on to the tape.
It's funny, I think builders, general public, they don't think about all the differences. I mean, I've seen multiple colors of mud. There's different varieties. There's a lot that goes into this that you've learned over the years as you've kind of honed your craft. And I wonder, now that you've been doing this 2 decades, if you and Ryan are quite a bit faster and smoother on your jobs with better finishes than you were in the first couple years you were in the trade.
Oh, absolutely. And you know, the beautiful thing about drywall is, and finishing, is there's really no limit to where your skills can go. Like I still learn things. I learn things from other people. I'm like, oh, why didn't I think about doing it that way? Or like, man, that was a clever way to do that. Or that was smart. Or like, there's always ways to improve, and you can always try different things, and so much of your outcome is based off of you and what you can do.
Yeah, and there's some personal preference too, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of, there's probably 20 different corner beads that you could be using on the job with pluses and minuses of each, different cost ranges. There's a lot that goes into this trade. There's
a ton. And, even different crews have different ways that they tape. So we do butts, and then we do flats, and then we do angles. Some crews do angles, and then butts, and then flats. And then some crews they tape their butts and their flats, and then they tape their angles on their skim coat. Like, it's all okay. And that's the beautiful thing about it. It's like, you can do it whichever way works the best for you. Just, you want your quality there. The steps to get there in what order are important, but not as important sometimes.
You know what else I was just thinking? This is a little bit off topic, but every house, every remodel, every apartment, every place where someone lives, your trade is involved with that, right?
Yes.
Whether that house is 20 years old and getting remodeled like this is, or maybe 40 years old and getting remodeled, or whether it's brand new construction, we're always gonna need people in the drywall trade to get those houses at that next stage of construction.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of fascinating when you start looking at like everything you walk into has drywall. I mean, yeah, you'll have an accent wall here or there, or maybe some brick or some wood, but it's probably all backed with drywall.
Yep.
I'm telling you right now, and it's huge. It is a huge industry.
And yet, there's so many different varieties of drywall and finishes for your trade. You know, when I worked East Coast, it was almost all smooth.
Yeah.
There are some places in the country that are all plaster, and we'll talk about the differences between drywall and plaster. There's some texture parts of the country where all they do is blow texture, maybe orange peel or some other varieties. What's common for you here in Montana in terms of the finished output?
Yeah, definitely. So this job right here, so it's taped right now, and then we're going to top it, as we call it. So all of these seams will get a coat of mud on them.
Okay, so we're gonna top today, which is taking this to the next layer of finishing.
Yep, exactly. So we'll run these with a 10. So all of the tape will get a coat.
Okay, I didn't buy a 10, I only brought an 8.
That's fine, that'll still work too. Some people do an 8, some people do a 10, like I said.
Okay, so we're gonna put that coat of mud on here with this thicker knife, whereas you use the joint knife, let's say, on that first coat, right? That's actually about the right width, isn't it?
Yep, you can wipe your tape with that, or you can wipe with an 8. I actually wipe my tape with an 8.
Okay.
So as you can tell, you have a nice bed here. The most important thing really is to make sure it's in the bevel too. It's very important.
Got it. And then we're also looking for that flat finish when we're all done, right?
Yes, exactly, yeah. So, and this one's a little bit different because we do have this belly band in here.
Yeah.
So this is gonna take some more floating and some more work on our
I could
end.
see you using that wider knife in this center section maybe to get that.
Yep, exactly, yeah.
Good.
So you'll split it, you know, you can do an 8 and an 8, and then you'll probably wind up running like a full 12 or even a 12 and a 12.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because these can be a little tricky to get rid of, but I'd rather have it here than down on the bottom because nobody wants to be crawling around on their knees all day.
Makes sense.
Taping that joint.
Okay, so tape's done. We're gonna do the top coat today, and I
Yes.
don't see any corner beads on like this window here.
Yeah.
There's no trim on this window. You guys are doing the trim, right?
Yes, we are.
So the hanger put the half-inch drywall on the jamb and the sill and the head.
Yep.
And then you guys are gonna come in and put some kind of corner bead here, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, exactly. So we're going to be using a tape-on product. It's the no-coat corner bead. So we're just going to go ahead and, you know, what's interesting is a lot of the times the drywallers are also your trim carpenters. So you got to think here, you're not going to have any trim going on these windows. We're going to be leaving this. It's finished. So it's really important that, number one, we do a good job.
Yep.
Number two, that the framers set up the reveal correctly, because there's only so much we can do. And, you know, and then the hangers, you know, you can see there, looks like they did a double sheet right there. You see that top? So
okay, you can see 2 layers here.
Yep. So
and they did that to keep the reveal consistent around the window?
Exactly, yep. Yeah, so that you know, that sheet just needed to come down just a little bit more. So the hangers set us
They
up
were
for
thinking you up.
success.
Yeah, they were thinking about that.
Yeah, exactly. So when they were hanging, they could tell, that's not gonna, there's probably a gap in the window or so.
And we call that a drywall return, right?
Yep, that's
Whereas
correct.
some houses have a trim return.
Yep.
So this sheet would be gone, there would be no corner bead.
Yeah.
And the drywall would stop here, then the finished carpenter would use wood
and then they would
there
come
instead.
in. Sometimes what we do too is on some of the very high-end modern ones, we'll do a full wrap, but then they actually put a sill on the very bottom, but just on that bottom piece. So then it looks all seamless and all drywall, except for a little wood sill on the very bottom.
Got it.
And now those are tricky because you really have to make sure your reveal is like perfect.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Lydia. I'm on the job. It's quiet right now. We don't have any music going. We don't have tools out yet. We're still getting prepped and started for the day. What are the things you like about this job? What are the things that you're like, you know, after doing this for 2 decades, I really enjoy these 3 things about the job?
Oh, yeah. Okay. So like one of my favorite things is like turn on your favorite music. You like jump on your stilts and you coat corner bead. And when you get good at it, it's almost therapeutic, honestly. Like you can just like be singing along. You're just, you know, spreading mud. It looks beautiful. You're like, dang, that's good, you know?
You have like 1 million+ subscribers on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube. And I'm one of them. I'll never do drywall myself, frankly. Well, maybe today I will, but I know that I'm not skilled at it. I would hire a professional, but yet I love watching your videos. It feels like a very satisfying trade where you show up to the job and it's rough framing. You can see through the walls. It feels like it's under construction, and yet when you're done with this project, you leave, it feels like a house. It's totally different. I bet your clients come in and they're like, oh my gosh, the house looks amazing. It looks so much bigger. I hear that all the time.
All the time. Or it's like, they're kind of at that stage and maybe they've had some issues, or maybe they're like, I really want to be building a house. Like, I don't know if this wall is going to look good there. And then like they come in and the drywall's up and they're like, oh my God, I love it. It actually feels like a house now.
Yeah.
It's everything's enclosed. They can really start envisioning themselves having their family over, Thanksgiving, Christmas, all of those beautiful things in the space.
It's funny. I think my clients over the years, when they finish up the drywall phase, feel like, oh, we're on the downhill. We're almost done. All we got to do is floors and tile and cabinets, and I'm moving in. You're like, well, hold on there, Tiger. We got a little bit more to do. But that's got to be a satisfying part of your job, is showing up to this rough house on day one. And on this job, maybe 5 days later, you're finished. You're turning it over to the next trade.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's either people think it's going to get done super fast, or they are like, oh, wow, you're done already. So there's like no in between. It's like, oh, so you guys going to be done tomorrow? And it's like,
no, we're not.
Or we get done in 4 days. And they're like, oh my gosh, wow, I thought it was going to take you like 3 weeks. So it really is, it's funny. You kind of like, there's a lot of misconceptions about drywall, I think. So some people think it's very labor intensive, and some people think you just come and slap some stuff on and walk out.
And you're done.
Yeah.
It is very labor intensive. How many days will you be on this job total?
We'll probably be on this job about 5 days. So we got our tape on. So then we'll top and get our corner bead installed today. We'll also hit all the screws, and then we'll do a rough sand, and then we'll come back and we'll do everything all over again, coat it all again, and then we'll sand again, and then we're going to do texture. So what's very common here is a swirl texture. So we spray on very thin mud through a speed flow.
Does it look like an airless sprayer?
Yeah, it's a big airless sprayer.
Gotcha.
It's actually a gas-powered motor, so it needs to run outside.
Legit.
Yeah, so during the winter, we have to be careful and make sure it doesn't freeze. And we also have to make sure the mud doesn't freeze.
Yeah.
So it'll go outside. We have a bunch of hose. We have the big like feed buckets like you use for like livestock.
Yep.
So we have big buckets like that, about 4 boxes per bucket.
Okay.
Mix it up with a bunch of water, throw the sprayer in there, spray a very thin layer, and then we have big pull trowels.
Oh, wow.
So every surface or every inch of this gets touched with a pull trowel.
Oh, wow.
So.
And then that's the finished coat. There's no sanding after that, right?
There's a little bit. So you can come in and you can crisp up your angles.
Okay.
You usually come back and like sand your corner bead so it's real nice and flat, so you can get some overlap. Sometimes there's drips, like it'll drip out of an outlet or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of tidying up after just to make sure it looks perfect.
But typically spray day is your dirtiest day in terms of getting coated that day.
Absolutely. Yeah, they are the dirtiest, and they're also the hardest because we have to close everything up.
Yeah.
Everything gets masked, doors get shut.
Yep.
You're spraying a very wet mud.
You get a workout in that day, don't you?
It's like going into a wet sauna and working out for like 6 hours with no break. And we usually don't eat on those days either because it's just too hot.
Yeah. I bet you get a serious good night's rest after that day.
Oh, yeah. We usually need like a day to recoup after those.
Yeah, I can see that.
It's very labor intensive.
That actually is a great question. I mean, do you typically get, is it usually every Monday through Friday you're working? Does that vary where some weeks you might have 2 or 3 days off and other weeks you're working 6 days in a row? What does your work schedule look like?
Yeah, so especially here, things can be a little seasonal. So during the summer, we are slammed. Like I can't even tell you the amount of July 4th that I've worked. It's very unusual for us to have any kind of downtime in the summer. So typically summer, I mean, I've been super confused on what's up, what's down, what day of the week it is lately, because it's just work.
You're making the bulk of your year's wages in the summer months.
Yes, yeah.
And then in a snowy climate like
yeah,
Montana.
and it's really not common for like January and February to be slow, especially February, especially if the builders haven't planned out and they have not poured their foundations. They can't really pour in the winter because it's too cold.
Right.
So if they're not getting themselves prepared, then we could be sitting, and it's not uncommon to have a week or two off in February just because. Especially if it's super cold too. If it's like negative 30 and there's no heat,
it's really hard.
We can't start.
Yeah, you can't do anything because all this is water based.
Absolutely. And drywall is really, temperatures in a controlled environment are very important.
Yeah.
Like in the winter, it cannot go below freezing because this mud will freeze and then all of your tape will fall off.
Makes sense.
So the nice thing, I guess, about drywall is that you always are at least kind of in a climate controlled environment.
Yeah.
Like, Yeah, if it's really hot during the summer, you're going to be hot, but at least in the winter, you're not outside working in the snow.
That's right. You know what I heard is, as a skier, I might actually have a little bit more time to ski in the wintertime if I'm doing your trade here in Montana.
Absolutely.
And there's some great skiing not that far. Bridger Bowl is close by. I've skied there before.
Yeah, Bridger's awesome.
That's really fun.
Bridger Bowl's really fun. Yeah, we have Bridger Bowl, we got Big Sky, we got Moonlight. There's a lot of people do actually work construction. They work really hard in the summer, and then they, you know, if it's a good powder day, they're like,
take the day
see
off.
ya. Yeah, and they take the day off.
Makes sense.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And that's the beautiful thing about being in construction.
Yeah, the other thing about your job that's really interesting is there's no clock in, clock out. Like, you know, you're not at the, you have to be at the job starting at 8, and at 5 o'clock, you know, the whistle blows and you're off. You can really set your hours a little bit. And as a married couple, that's kind of cool to be in business together. I suspect there have been plenty of days when your kids were in elementary school and one of you left the job early maybe to pick the kids up from school. Or go to a doctor's appointment or whatever. There's a lot of flexibility in your trade.
Absolutely. So like, okay, say today, once this mud is on, we're done. We're done.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we want to go extra fast or we want to get everything done super quick, we can.
Yeah, if you started this job at 8, you might be done today at 2 o'clock, let's say, on this 1,800 square foot house. And you're home, showered up, and ready to go to the store and figure out what you're making for dinner that night.
Exactly.
Which is kind of fun.
You know, if you're not in the mood to be like gung ho, you know, if it takes you 8 hours and you're goofing around, or you go outside and like enjoy the beautiful weather, or you take a long lunch, like it's okay.
That flexibility is cool.
Yeah, and you can always speed things up too. I mean, that is kind of the nice thing about drywall and finishing. Like, say we have a super tight timeline, you could just blast a bunch of heat in here and get it done too.
Makes sense.
Which isn't always the funnest, but it is an option.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, Lydia, what do we need to do to get some work done today? We got some prep, right?
Yeah, first thing I'm going to have you do is move a bunch of mud.
Okay.
So our mud here comes in boxes, and we got to get those boxes into buckets.
And we got to get a mix station ready, don't we?
We do, because one thing that's really important, especially with drywall, is you want to try and keep things clean. So we always try and have a dedicated mixing spot. We put a scrap piece of drywall board down and then mix on top of that. So then we keep the floors at least somewhat clean.
All right, let's roll. Put me to work.
Let's go.
Whew, only one step into the house, and yet my heart's pumping after moving
I know,
those.
right? These are...
What do those weigh?
About 35 to 40 pounds, I think.
I'm not sure that you need to go to Gold's Gym after work after lugging these all day.
And I carry them up a couple flights, and you're going to be feeling it.
Yeah, plus we're going to be working over our head today, too, with mud pans. There's going to be some muscles going on today.
We are. You definitely get strong. It's definitely like shoulder and arm muscles, pretty significant.
I can see that.
Yes.
So I've never mixed mud before. What do I need to know?
Well, first things first, ours comes in boxes. So as you can see, there's some tape here. So we're going to need to get that tape open. Okay. So you're going to take that knife and you're going to cut that top open.
Okay. Always use a knife away from you. I do know that.
Yes. And our drywall knives are usually pretty sharp. So definitely be careful.
And I noticed that there's green boxes and blue boxes on the job. What's the difference and why are we mixing blue here?
So the blue that we have right here, this is +3. It's a more lightweight compound. It's really made for coating. The green stuff is made for taping. So typically on a job, we're using anywhere from 2 to 3 different kinds of mud.
Interesting.
So we will tape with the green mud with the all-purpose, and then we will switch to the +3 for all of our coat work.
Okay, I'm not sure that I knew that.
If we're texturing, then we'll switch to a different one.
And back in the old days, when I was a younger builder, this would all be in buckets like this size, but now it's all boxes on the job site.
Well, it's boxes here. Depending on where you are, will depend on if it's buckets or boxes. So East Coast has buckets. We typically have a lot of boxes here.
And you
can buy either.
And we're not getting this right out of the box and putting it right in our pan, right? You're actually mixing it and adding something to it? Just water?
Just water. So when you look at this, it is pretty thick. Like, it's not going to be super nice to work with. It's not going to spread well. It's just kind of thick and
clumpy.
Yeah, clumpy.
And so we're trying to get it smoother.
Yes.
And so that when we apply it to the wall on that top coat, or the block coat as I always called it, growing up in the business, it's going to be smoother. So how do I get this from the box into the bucket? I'm sorry to say I don't even know. Just literally dump it upside down in the bucket?
Yeah, pretty much. So you're just going to take that box and you're going to take it over to the bucket, and then you're going to kind of smack it on the side and get it to fall in there.
Oh my gosh, it actually mostly went in.
Yeah, that was pretty good.
How about that?
So then you're gonna take your bag
Okay.
and then kind of get it off the sides of the box.
Okay. All right, so my box is done now.
And then you can take that bag and then just clean up the edges with all that extra mud that kind of got spilled on the side.
Got it. Because this mud is money, so we don't want to waste a bunch of this mud, right?
Yeah, definitely. And you can just kind of like get those clumps off of there. There you go.
Got it. How's
Perfect.
that?
Perfect.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's good.
And then this we're going to throw away.
Yep.
And what's interesting, there's a lot less waste than the old days when you had tons of drywall buckets in the dumpster.
I know, right? And you can, you know, some people are even like really particular and will do like water in there and like wash out the bag.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
it kind of just depends. We go through so much, it doesn't really matter if we save like a little teaspoon.
A tenth of a box or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Okay, so that's trash
can
pile.
break down too, which is really nice.
All right, so you got your mixing drill, obviously, just a little variable speed electric drill.
And then this is what we call a beater bar.
Okay.
Everybody has kind of different names for it. This is like really the most traditional style. It's just a square.
Okay.
There's a bunch of different kinds, but we like this, number one, because it fits in the bucket with other things. Some of them you actually literally have to have a bucket for them to fit in.
And you're
'cause
putting
they're
them in
so
the bucket
big.
so that you don't have dried mud the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And that's super important. So as you can tell, we have it in water. The mud is wet on the paddle.
Mm-hmm.
So like say you left us sitting out, it'll be all dried mud and then
Yeah.
it'll get dried mud all
But it's not
over.
like concrete that's going to cure underwater either.
No, it won't cure.
Okay.
So if it's wet, it will rot.
Oh, is that right? Over time
Yeah,
it'll
we
rot?
unfortunately don't have any stinky buckets here for you to smell. But,
I'm good. I trust you on that
yeah,
one.
it'll smell like sulfur.
Okay, so we're going to chuck this bit.
Yes.
And then am I adding anything to this mix, or am I just go ahead and mixing it without?
You can just go ahead and mix it without first. And
Okay.
one thing that we do is we always chop it up a little bit with the beater bar so you don't have like a big chunk of mud just spinning in the
And
in
do
the
I need
bucket.
do I need to do you have
Nope,
a
you should
chuck
begin.
key?
Let's see. Nope, we don't use a chuck key with this guy.
We just tighten it by hand.
Yeah.
Don't tell anybody that Matt didn't chuck it correctly. Shh.
No, perfect.
Okay.
Now you're gonna want to hold that bucket with your feet.
Where'd all that
tight.
water come from? Did you put some water in there?
No, it's just in the bucket.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
So yeah, chop it up a little bit.
So you kind of pre-watered the bucket a little bit.
Sometimes there's just some stuff in there. And then we're gonna take that brush actually.
Oh, I did it
okay,
again. I'm
redo
sorry.
it.
Okay. Okay, well, what's the brush do?
And then the brush you're actually gonna take and you're just gonna like get around the sides of the bucket
Oh,
so that
okay.
it's clean.
To get that in.
Yeah, so you can take some water out of there. Because everything that is gonna be sitting or staying there is gonna dry. So
Got
the
it.
biggest thing we wanna do is make sure that our mud is fresh and it's staying nice and wet. Because anything dry is gonna make trash.
Yep, okay.
Or like little hard chunks.
Now, I am a newbie, but I realize that if I put this mixing bar too far up, it's gonna sling mud everywhere, isn't it?
Yes, and you also don't wanna hit the sides of the bucket because then you'll get pieces of plastic everywhere.
Okay.
Okay.
And
so,
how much do I need to brace the bucket to? Because this
Quite a
bucket can
bit.
spin pretty good.
Yeah,
can't
it's
it?
gonna spin pretty good. So go ahead and give it a little bit.
Hey, not bad.
Yeah, right?
My
You're
first time
getting it.
mixing mud, I did all right. How long does it take?
About 20 seconds, maybe 30, a minute. I mean, sometimes depending on how smooth you want it, you can go for a lot longer.
And how smooth am I looking for here?
We're looking for smooth.
Okay, so like cake batter.
Yep, exactly. Like we don't want any lumps in there or any like nasty stuff.
I mean, this is basically a glorified KitchenAid stand mixer at this
Yeah,
point,
pretty
right?
much, right?
Ooh, that looks nice. And I'm bracing with my feet. Am I doing that right?
Yes, that's good. Yeah, because what'll happen is if you don't hold it, the bucket will spin around and hit you.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, you can do it all the way up.
Can you?
Yeah,
All the way
oh, yeah.
top speed?
Yep.
Okay. If you didn't have this handle, it would whip around on you.
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah,
It's got
some
some
people
power.
hold up there, but I hold down there. Yeah, that's
Okay, now I gotta wipe, don't I?
Yep.
Okay, we're getting that in.
Oh, and you got a little bubble, which is a little burp. It's getting mixed up all nice. You can lift the beater bar up just a little bit. There you go. You don't want to
Okay.
go too far.
Yeah, but I want to get that top mixed into the bottom, don't I?
Yep, exactly. And sometimes what can happen is the bottom won't get mixed in too. So you'll get down to the bottom of your bucket It'll be all really thick mud.
Interesting. Now,
Let's
this
see how
definitely feels thicker.
Yeah, you can tell, can't you? You can tell by the way it's moving and the way it's mixing up.
The swirl pattern.
Yeah.
Okay, Lydia, how'd I do?
Awesome. It was
My
pretty
first one.
satisfying, right?
It's very
Because
satisfying.
Sometimes you kind of you can make some like crazy patterns. If you let the bucket wobble a little bit, it'll do like big swirls.
I feel like
That's
I'm
pretty
back
cool.
in high school in my clay pottery class where I'm
Yes.
getting ready to put this pottery up on the wheel.
Yes, absolutely. It's kind of.
It kind of feels like that with my hands being a little dirty
I know,
too.
right?
Like,
Look
I
at
got clay
you.
on
All
there.
you did is mix mud.
Yeah, and I got a little dirty, but not bad.
You
I mean,
did.
it's not all over me yet.
No, not yet.
Not yet.
So what we're gonna do with this is we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up because we're
Okay.
gonna use this later.
So we don't want this to dry.
Yep, we want it to be as tightly wrapped as possible, and then we'll just fold the box corners back in. But that way we can use it later.
Okay, so no air as little air bubbles in there as possible,
Yep,
right?
exactly. Yeah, we want to get it down as tight as we can and kind of give it a twist. Perfect. So that's exactly how it came from the factory, right? So we
Yep.
kind of want to reseal it back up.
Okay, so that's sealed,
Yep.
and then the box is
Yeah, you
just
just
gonna...
throw them in there. Perfect.
Okay.
There you go.
And then we'll use that later today, probably.
Yeah, yep, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, now, how does this go from the bucket to the wall?
Well, you got to load up your pan. You got to get a knife. You got to put your mud in your
go?
pan.
I got to go find my pan.
Yeah, it's right over there.
Okay, I got my pan. I got my 8-inch taping knife.
You're going to want that one for sure.
Okay, and this is how I'm going to load it.
Yeah, and you're actually going to use that to do screws too.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah,
so we're
we
going
don't
to
want to
actually
do
use...
screws with the big knife. Like
We're going to
that.
use both the 6 and the 8-inch knife.
Yeah, we might even use a 10 and a 12. You typically use a lot of different knife sizes.
Okay, and this is just scoop out of here and load it up, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And how loaded do I want to be?
That depends on how much weight you want to carry. So
About like that much.
yeah, so the beautiful thing is that you can make it as full as you want it, or you can make it as empty as you want it. And the biggest difference is you're just going to be coming back to the bucket more often.
Okay.
So I typically use a 14 and we'll fill the entire pan all the way.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a heavy pan.
Yeah, so then you're holding it, but you're having to go back to the bucket less.
Less.
And then you're getting more work done because you're not going back and forth to the bucket.
Okay, well, I'll start here and then I'll go up from there.
Yeah, let's start you with a little easy.
I think we're ready to put some mud on the wall, guys. Stay
think so,
tuned for the next episode of Talking Trades. Lydia's going to actually get the mud on the wall. I suspect there might be a little bit on me as well. Talking Trades, we're talking drywall. See you next time. I want to say a huge thanks to my friends at Sashco for sponsoring this Talking Trades series. First off, if you're not familiar with them, Sashco makes a huge line of premium caulks and sealants that I use every day on my high performance builds. They're a family-owned company that makes their products in Colorado, but they also have been a massive supporter of trade school education. Now, if you are a trade school teacher watching this video, I want to tell you about their Class Pack program, which was designed for you to use in your classroom to educate students about sealant technology and application. Now, I've been through a version of this program and it was really fun and educational. You can enhance your curriculum with their expert resources. Learn more at sashco.com/trades-support. Now, if you aren't a teacher, you can still make a difference in this battle to bolster our trade base. Take the Sashco Challenge. Volunteer a local trade school in your town, capture the moment, share it on social media and tag Sashco, and your reward will be a free case of Lexel as a token of their appreciation for supporting trades education. Thanks again, Sashco, for sponsoring these videos. I want to thank our friends at Front Door for sponsoring this Talking Trades series. If you're not familiar with Front Door, they are reimagining how homeowners maintain and repair their most valuable asset, their home. As the parent company of 2 leading brands, Front Door brings over 50 years of experience in providing their members with comprehensive options to protect their homes from costly and unexpected breakdowns through their extensive network of pre-qualified professional contractors. American Home Shield has approximately 2 million members and gives homeowners budget protection and convenience, covering up to 23 essential home systems and appliances. Now, Front Door is a cutting-edge, one-stop app for home repair and maintenance. Enabled by their Stream technology, the app empowers homeowners by connecting them in real time through video chat with pre-qualified experts to diagnose and solve their problems. The Front Door app also offers homeowners a range of other benefits, including DIY tips, discounts, and much more. More information about American Home Shield and Front Door, visit frontdoorhome.com. Now, as the largest provider of home service plans in the nation and a network of approximately 16,000 independent contractors, Front Door is spreading the word and advocating to bring new talent into the pipeline by creating opportunities for young people as plumbers, electricians, and other highly skilled professions. Front Door has also been sponsoring organizations committed to the advancement of the skilled trades like Skills USA and Be Pro, Be Proud. I've been to their events. Those are amazing organizations, and huge thanks to Front Door for their partnership in this Talking Trade series.